I'm here at the Rodic Gates in downtown Montreal on Sunday, November 26th, where a handful of Montrealers have gathered to commemorate the first anniversary of the Urumqi fire in Chinese-occupied East Turkestan, also known as Xinjiang. The Urumqi fire that occurred on November 24th, 2022, took the lives of 10 Uyghur people, an ethnic Muslim minority. The fire happened during China's then zero-COVID policy, when doors of buildings and houses were locked from the outside. This meant that people that were inside the building couldn't leave, and firefighters that were trying to get into the building were not allowed either. When the fire broke in the 18-story building, those who were inside, many of whom were mothers and children, perished in the fire. The Uyghur families impacted by this tragedy and many others around the world have demanded answers for those that lost their lives in this fire and millions of other Uyghur Muslims that have lost their lives under the Chinese government.
Good evening. Welcome back to the square on the cold day after a whole year. Many of you guys can probably remember that we have a very huge protest to call to end China's zero COVID policy, which at that time we called them the White Paper Revolution, or in French is Révolution à quatre. Here I speak only to express my heartfelt gratitude and respect to those who struggle with courage, ideals, and love for their fellow, for the others. With your steadfastness, the cold wind blowing through the square today. Oh my gosh, I'm not gonna wear this mask. The cold wind through the square today has evolved from a bitter storm into a breeze of change. The wind of change had already swept over China, the biggest authoritarian bastion in East Asia. With the White Paper Revolution a year ago, whether Xi Jinping liked it or not, the growth of people's consciousness of freedom is now a political fact, and they must accept this fact. This was not said by myself. This was said by the Prime Minister of Great Britain, Harold Macmillan, in 1960s. He had a very famous speech called The Wind of Change. Throughout this year, we have heard the people's demands since the White Paper Revolution. The people called for an end to the after-zero COVID policy. The people urged the Chinese authorities to fulfill their economic development promises rather than engage in the political scrambling. The people also asked the authorities to release Peng Zhaizhou, the famous guy who had become the first in China to protest against Xi Jinping. They also hoped that both the Chinese workers in Beijing and Uyghur workers in Urumqi factories could be free from the forced labor and unregulated overtime working. And they did not hire their nostalgia for Prime Minister Li Keqiang, who had just passed away last month, even though he had neither the choice nor the power to serve the country and the people indeed. These demands have transformed into a struggle of thousands, a cry of millions, and sympathy from a billion people. How can such a force not make the bureaucrats in China to be terrified? To make them fear us is the reason why we're standing here today. We cannot change China with a single rally, but at least we can make them afraid and thus open a new path toward our goal, to build a free, equal, and open Chinese society. 各位同胞，时隔1年，欢迎各位今天在这个寒冷的日子里重返这片广场。在此，我只代表我自己，向心怀勇气、理想与对同胞的爱的诸位抗争者们，表达由衷的感谢与敬意。今天吹过这片广场的寒风，随着各位的坚守，从凛冽的风暴演化成了变革之微风。变革之风早已经随着1年前的白纸运动，席卷于中国这座东亚的集权堡垒之上。无论习近平他喜不喜欢，人们自由意识的增长已经成为了政治上的事实，因此他们必须接受这个事实。从白纸运动过来这1年，我们听到了人民的诉求，人民要求结束可笑的动态清零政策，人民呼吁当局兑现发展经济而不是政治斗争的承诺，人民需要当局释放彭仔舟，人民盼望从北京写字楼的白领到新疆工厂里的维吾尔工人都能免于强迫的劳动与加班，人民更毫不掩饰的对李克强总理的怀念，即使他并没有选择，也没有能力真的去为国为民做些什么。这些诉求汇聚在一起，形成了上千人的抗争，上百万人的呼喊，以及10几亿人心中的同情。这样的力量，焉能不让中南海里的政客们感到畏惧？而这就是我们今天站在这里的原因。我们不可能通过一场集会就改变中国的现状，但我们至少可以令他们害怕，从而为实现我们的目标，建立一个自由、平等、开放的中国社会而开辟新的道路。The protest is going to be started right now, and give me 1 second. And then it's like about 7:15 right now. We are going to read the poem of the famous German poet Bertolt Brecht. His poem. We're gonna read his poem first, and then we're gonna all be silent for the people who has been arrested, for the be tortured, and even been killed by the Chinese regime in the past few years. We're gonna be silent for a minute after we read this poem. What a terrible. I mean. We're gonna read this poem. Is called "This is the year which people will talk about." This is the year which people will talk about. This is the year which people will be silent about. The old see the young die. The foolish see the wise die. The earth no longer produces, it devours. The sky hurls down no rain, only iron. 这是人们会说起的1年，这是人们说起就沉默的1年。老人看着年轻人死去，傻瓜看着聪明人死去。大地不再生产，它吞噬；天空不下雨，只下铁。It's not the fault of the ordinary people in China. Just like for now, in Russia we see that many people come to protest, but there's nothing. Because now in 21st century, we all know that for a state, for a government, the ultimate thing for them to survive is not the support of the people. Instead, it's the funds to the police, to military, and to all the oppressive tools against the ordinary protesters. As long as they can grasp them tightly in their hands, they will be able to overcome any challenge from the people. And this is a problem for us we need to face in 21st century, which is that the ordinary protest, the normal protest, demonstration, struggle, or even the violence, or even terrorism cannot solve any problem, because now we are facing the situation that all the governments around the world, they are more and more relying on the policemen, on the military, on the violent forces to suppress the people instead of trying to negotiate or talking with them. So this is one of our challenges for now, and I understand why people are losing their faith or losing their idea about what we're going to do in the future, because this is not a problem of China. This is also a problem of Russia, of Iran, of even in the democratic countries like here, we still have lots of problems. Like in France, the president of Emmanuel Macron can just pass whatever law he wants, and without caring about the million of people who go to Paris to protest. Especially last year, I remember he had done something pension reform in France, which had raised the retirement age to 55 or 70, I forgot. But there was a million of people in Paris to protest, but it didn't stop him. Now this is a problem we all facing today, not only in authoritarian countries like Russia or China or Iran, but also in democratic countries like here in Canada. In the future, we will face this problem too.
So, my name is Ben, and I'm the co-spokesperson of the Action Free Hong Kong Montreal. Just want to say that in 2019 there was a large democratic process in Hong Kong. At that time, Hong Kongers actually was hoping the Chinese from mainland would support Hong Kong for the democratic process. But in fact, that is not the case. We didn't receive the support that we have expected. That's mainly because the CCP government has been the disinformation. They try to spread this disinformation and try to portray that all the Hong Kongers are separatists. So this kind of motivates the nationalism of the Chinese people, and then spin it that this is not a democratic process. This is more like a separated movement. That's why we didn't receive the expect that we have seen. So we are glad that in last year we see the white paper revolutions. This is the first time since 1989 that we see something that is requesting for a democratic process inside China. But I would like to share a little bit about the Hong Kong demo. I would say the democracies of experience in the last few years. So just like in this movement, as you can see, the number of people is not the same as 1 year ago. The number of people has dropped a lot. It's the same case in the Hong Kong community. So in the Hong Kong community, we have basically changed our strategy to more linkage to the Canadian community. Our focus is now to illustrate that how the CCP government interfered the Canadian elections in here. So I would like to say that the interference is very clear. It's not only at the federal level of election, but also at the provincial, city, and the school board level. If you look at the WeChat, which is the most commonly used app by the Chinese community in Canada and in the world, you can see that a lot of disinformation are spreading in the Chinese community, especially during the election period. Okay, and it's not like only happening in the election period. They take a very long time to build the atmosphere in the chat group to portray that they are trying to protect the Chinese. They're trying to protect the Chinese community in Canada. But in fact, they are at the end of the day, they are trying to support a specific pro-CCP candidate, or try to spread disinformation to go against some candidates who are very vocal on human rights issues. So that's the situation. And in Hong Kong now in Canada, we are trying to bring this information to the mainstream media in Canada and bring the awareness to the Canadian community. So I just want to share that this is the shift of the paradigm in the Hong Kong community to more connect with Canadians. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so I'm gonna just make my final speech before we end this, if you don't mind. It's gonna be like, we're gonna finish everything in the next 15 minutes, but still, I again very appreciate what all of you guys are coming. My name is Fred. I'm the representative of the Assembly of Citizens here in Montreal, and just as you know that, again, thank you so much for Aaron to come here. First, 我先拿中文讲吧。I'm gonna speak in Chinese and I'm gonna speak English, OK? 首先呢，请让我给大家先讲个冷笑话。现在中国有14亿人，刨去3亿未成年，还有2亿65岁以上的老年人，我们有大概9亿左右的劳动力。如果我们迫使这9亿人每个人都去996的话，会发生什么？996乘以9，答案是8964。是的，如果我们把所有人都去996，那最后结果就是8964。一声巨响，嘣，抗争就这么开始了。996呢，是中国极端压迫的体现，它与政治上的迫害、言论上的管控一样，是共产党刻意放纵，把一个个鲜活的人当成某种取之不尽、用之不竭的资源的必然结局。正如我们先前在旧金山的这个 San Francisco 这个 APEC 的会议上看到那样，对内残暴的习近平政权，对外却宛如一只变色龙。他对拜登唯唯诺诺，能屈能伸，而一旦他转头回到北京的中南海老窝里，他就开始对反对者重拳出击。1个星期前，南京有一位媒体人孙林在警局内被警察活活打死。3天前，人权律师许知勇判刑14年。阮小环判刑10年，张展判刑8年，彭载舟现在还没判刑，到现在还得关着。而更多的普通中国人则跟我们所有人一样，陷入一场经济危机。与以往不同的是，这次的经济危机是习近平政权一手打造的彻头彻尾的人祸。14亿人在暴众的洪流中挣扎，如果再不扭转这一切，整个中国社会只能步入慢性的死亡，亦或是在他死前把这个世界搅得天翻地覆，摧毁我们赖以生存的一切。日本历史学家竹内豪有言，历史并非空虚的时间形式，如果没有无数为了确立自我而进行的殊死搏斗的瞬间，不仅会失掉自我，而且也将失掉历史。我们为什么抗争？因为我们还有良知。我们为什么不愿屈服？因为我们还有灵魂。我们为什么站在这里？因为我们想要知道我们是谁。人一旦获得良知与灵魂上的解放，便很难再回到以往那个封闭而奴役的硬壳中去。他只有在不断追求自由的过程中，才能确保自身的存在。正因为如此，我们成为抗争者，也是与我们的自我解放而息息相关的命运。就像我在开场时所说的那样，变革之风早已经随着1年前的白纸运动，席卷于中国这座东亚的集权堡垒之上。无论习近平他喜不喜欢，人们自由意识的增长已经成为了政治事实，因此他们必须接受这个事实。骰子已经掷下，现在这场游戏轮到我们出牌了。愿诸位坚持抗争，不要放弃希望。如果白纸革命能让他们畏惧，那么只要我们团结一心，则吾等无人能敌。First, allow me to start some bit of dark humor first. Currently, China has a population of 1.4 billion. Subtracting the 300 million minors and the 200 million people over the age of 65 years old, we have a total of 9 million in the workforce, or 0.9 billion. And you all know that China, we have something called the 996 working system. As what it said, it is working from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., working for 6 a day. And overtime and forcing labor is very common in China, which were unregulated and being ignored by the current Chinese government. You can imagine that what would happen if we force those 9 million people in China to all adopt this kind of 996 working system. 996 times 0.9 is 8964. 1989, June 4th, Tiananmen Square. Boom. If you force everyone be oppressed, in the end, then people will start to rise. We will start to make rebellion. We will start to struggle with protests to tackle down what is happening in China. The overtime system the unregulated forced labor in China represents extreme oppression. It is just like the political persecution and control of freedom of speech in China, which is a deliberate indulgence by the Communist Party of China, treating each individual as inexhaustible human resource instead of human themselves. This inevitably leads to the dire consequences. As we witnessed at the previous APEC meeting in San Francisco, the brutal Xi Jinping regime within China appears as a charlatan outside. Mr. Xi seems very adaptable and compliant in front of Joseph Biden. And yet, when he back to Beijing, he strikes back fiercely against all the people who disagree with him. Just a week ago, a media reporter from Nanjing, his name is Sun Lin, was beaten to death in the police station. 3 days ago, human rights lawyer Xu Zhiyong has been sentenced for 14 years. And also the reporter Zhang Zhan has been sentenced this year for 8 years. And then Ren Xiaohuan, one of the most famous internet blogger in China, who taught people how to use the VPN to bypass the Chinese internet censorship from 10 years ago, was also recently being arrested and sentenced for 10 years. And also the last, Peng Daizhou, the first one who started to protest against the Chinese zero COVID policy, was still being detained. And we don't know how long he's going to be detained, because there is no judgment, there's no sentence. He will probably detain in the prison forever. Meanwhile, unlike before, more ordinary Chinese are suffering into an economic crisis right now. This crisis, caused by the mismanagement of Xi Jinping's regime, now has made 1.4 billion people in China struggle in the torrent of tyranny. If this cannot be stopped, Chinese society is doomed to a slow death, or, before its demise, may turn the world upside down, destroying everything we have now and everything we enjoy now. Japanese historian Yoshimi Takeuchi once said, "History is not an empty form of time. It includes infinite instances in which one struggles against obstacles so that the self may be itself, without which both the self and history will be lost." Why do we protest? Why do we struggle? Because we still have a conscience. Why won't we surrender? Because we still have a soul. Why are we standing here? Because we want to know who we are. Once a person gains liberation in conscience and soul, it becomes difficult to return to the closed and enslaved shell of the past. Only by continually pursuing freedom can one ensure one's existence. That's why our struggle is a destiny intimately linked with our liberation. As I mentioned at the beginning, the wind of change has already swept over China, the biggest authoritarian bastion in East Asia. While the White Paper Revolution a year ago, whether Xi Jinping liked it or not, the growth of people's consciousness of freedom is now a political fact, and they must accept this fact. The die is cast, and it's our turn to play this game. May our struggle continue. May we will not abandon the hope. If the revolution of the white paper will make them fear, then we will overcome when we are all united. Thank you so much. Yeah, I believe that this protest is probably going to be an end because it's going to be small. It's now like about 7:40. So I'm going to end this everything with the another poem of my beloved German poet Brecht again. And the last poem's title is "Those Who Take the Meat from the Table." Those who take the meat from the table teach contentment. Those for whom the taxes are destined demand sacrifice. Those who either fill speak to the hungry of wonderful times to come. Those who lead the country into the abyss, call ruling too difficult for ordinary men. 那些把肉从桌上拿走的人，教导人们去满足；那些获得进贡的人，要求人们牺牲；那些吃饱喝够的人，向饥饿者描述将来的美好时代；那些把国家带到深渊里的人，说统治太难，普通人不能胜任。Again, thank you so much for everyone's coming. And if anyone will have any questions about the Assembly of Citizens, please you can come to ask me. Or if anyone want to have interview, please also come to ask me. And if anyone have any other question or want to help me to collect everything, and then we're gonna go back to home, then please also come here and help me. Thank you so much.
I doubt that they will actually
I don't know if we shall just do whatever you have last year to bring their Yeah, but they seem quite alarming this time. I do have mask. I can just open my face here, but in front of Chinese consulate, I must do it because they have the CCTV camera here. In China, yeah. How do you guys find each
Hi, my name is Fred, and I'm the president of the Assembly of Citizens in Montreal. I'm also currently working for other medias in Montreal as well. And the reason we come back here now because last year, in the end of the November, we have held a protest in front of the Hotel Hodik in Montreal, and then to show our solidarity for the people with the people in China who had called to end the ridiculous zero COVID policy, while also to call the Xi Jinping to be stepped down.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about how China's policies led to this event?
We have 3 years harsh zero COVID policy, and everyone has been locked in their home. They have no freedom of movement, and many people have lost their jobs and even till now, because we still have the financial crisis after the end of the COVID, and now because of the mismanagement of the Xi Jinping government, it has just created another economic crisis, while also have deteriorated the relationship between China and US. And this is the reason why we are worried, because China isn't like North Korea. We must be open to the world to make the people in China to be able to survive. And if Xi Jinping wants to reverse this process, then all of us will be his victim.
Why is it important to remember and talk about this here in Canada and Montreal?
The thing is this, because now if you have heard about the news, that you're gonna know that our Canadian government and even the Parliament, Senate has been infiltrated by the Chinese Chinese agents, and our Parliament members, include Michael Chong, has been sent death threat since the beginning of last year because of his criticizing attitude against China's policy. And if you can see that if we don't stand up and tell the Canadian government to take fierce action against this, then this thing will keep happening. Then nobody in Canada can be safe.
What kind of action would you like to see from the Canadian government?
So that's the thing, that the reason why we are holding this kind of event here is not because we need to we're just gathering people. It's also because we need to remind people that we are still here. So even if the scale is small, to be exist is the most important goal for us right now. Montreal isn't a big city. It's only like about 400 million people. Compared to many places in China or US, we don't have that strong overseas Chinese community here. But it doesn't mean that we cannot do anything.